There are some real barriers to entry for people in terms of setting up a retail business and where you do that from.
The project's objective was to start that new generation of independent retailers.
This gives them the opportunity to test their product to see whether they can take it to the next step.
One of the great things about a project like this is that it wraps around the person who wants to start a business. So what they get is they get all of the support and guidance and all of the expertise and knowledge that comes from working in this area for a number of years. The individual gets all of that wrapped around them, so they get supported to take those first steps into starting their business, which is vital. You know, one of the most difficult things is knowing who to go to and what to register and when to register it, and things like tax and insurances, and what this project does is help those traders with all of that, so that they take effectively what this project is about doing is taking the pain out of starting a business and allowing people the opportunity to test trade their idea and see if they can make a viable business out of their passion.
It was really important to do this because the high streets right across the Tees Valley were suffering, and we needed to do something, I think, to try and regenerate those high streets. We're also that with high unemployment, that retail was an option for people, but it was a difficult option.
Test trading with minimum risk. That was the point of the project, giving them a flavour, the experience of doing that, and also minimising the risk in the sense of educating them about being a retailer.
We chose to use the local press primarily as a source of gaining interest through PR pieces and kind of advertising through them, and that was key to us identifying the vast majority of our applicants, to be honest.
Brief details about who they are, the type of business that they want to do, and then also we've asked for a proposal or a business plan. Those that have been a little bit more thought out would have a business plan, but we also accept that this is a test trading project, so ultimately it might just be a proposal at this stage.
It was just, I think, a really key intervention to be able to say, well, it's not really a difficult project. Some aspects of it are hard to cope with, but for the most part, it's not a difficult project. But it does give people that opportunity in a real way. So it's not just fiddling around at the edges and playing with a business, but it's an actual setting up a real business in a very safe environment, which has effects both for them and for the local area.
We have a process where we go through a pre-startup and then let them decide after the workshop whether they believe they're still committed to moving into this programme. And then the next step to that would be this incubation unit to give them the opportunity to test their product before committing themselves to what they would normally commit themselves to in the first place, which is quite a big liability.
The chief concern for all the project team was that the first group of test traders in Middlesbrough should start trading before Christmas, so they got a feel of the trading and they could benefit from the Christmas rush, which is the highlight turnover for the retail business. That meant identifying a retail unit very, very fast, talking to the private sector, getting the leases sorted out, all the finance sorted out, and getting the unit renovated and up to scratch.
An empty shop is invisible. People don't see it, so ultimately, it rarely gets back into use because the shutters are down and there's a lot of issues around that. But then it also has a knock-on effect on the businesses either side or across from it, etc. So I started developing a relationship with landlords and agents to talk about, how we could use them temporarily.
For the retailers who, after all, are the centre of what we're doing and are the most important people, it's been quite challenging for them in terms of being able to look at what it is really like to be a retailer.
Well, I feel like I've got a lot to learn, but I feel like it's going really fast, and you just learn every single hour. You learn something new, every single minute even.
Being employed to being an employer and a business owner is that I know I have to put the work in. I mean, that's how businesses succeed. Currently I'm working 6 days a week. I have 2 small children.
I think very often in a background of business support, you give people the theory, you almost teach them how to do it, but it's very rare that we actually very much hands-on in helping them do it. And I think from what we've recognised, the retailers learn very quickly that it's really quite hard work to actually run a retail business.
After sort of the first couple of weeks, I just really wasn't sure if some of them would even stay.
What we do initially, we have our famous words called the Big Dipper effect, and we try and warn them of the pits and the highs and lows of being in retail. Now, what happened in the Middlesbrough was slightly different to the other 2 experiences was because we focused in Middlesbrough on the group of people, on the business skills. We focused on making sure the right product range, making sure they knew who the competitors were, making sure they actually promoted themselves. And what we found was we actually didn't do enough personal development. Now, personal development is all about mentoring people to cope with and to learn from their experiences. It's all about giving them confidence. It's all about making them more adaptable to business. And what we found was in Middlesbrough was we put that much information in initially. We had to sort of step back a little bit because we were in overload. There's a huge life-changing experience for these people to actually go from I want to shop to actually trading. Even in a test environment, it's a very, very, very competitive element.
I've given them a few hint questions on feedback, such as what have you been doing this week chiefly? What's been the best thing that's happened this week? What's been the worst thing that's happened? What have you learnt this week that you hadn't realised about being a test trader? What are your plans for next week? And that was a way to get feedback from them that wasn't coloured by any way about what I was talking about or what I'm interested in. So that's been something different in this project that we've been doing.
We found that because there was a lot of work, sort of homework, I guess, that was given to them by sort of the retail consultants in terms of, you know, profit and loss and weekly sales figures, that type of thing, then, you know, a lot of them found that they didn't have the time to do it. It wasn't something that they could want to do on an evening, you know, but didn't necessarily have time during the day. However, you know, every time you'd go in, they'd be sort of clustered together chatting and, you know, you go, right, well, okay, you could be doing your sheets then. And regardless of whether they're talking about something that's work-related, still just trying to remind them and to get a feel for that. But they often felt that we were like their boss, you know, and telling them what to do. And we used to say, actually, if you don't do well this week, if you don't get your marketing and your sales right, then you're going to lose out, you know, not us.
We try to work them as a group better, get the group to support each other more, which was a big difference. And we also tried to actually get them to think of after the 6 months trading quicker. Where in Middlesbrough, they'd never done it before, they're all excited, they're enjoying themselves, they were doing some business, but they weren't actually thinking longer term. And of course, retail isn't about the short term, it's about the long term. In Stockton, we all saw it differently. One of the things which none of them had experience of was actually dealing with landlords. And we've actually exposed them and spoke to estate agents and landlords at a much earlier stage so they know how complex and how detailed and how important that part of the process is.
The partnership working on this project has been very, very good.
Private organisations such as Be Supplied, who are working with us on the retail element, through to the local authorities, who we're working with individually in Redcar, Stockton and Middlesbrough. Furthermore, the landlords as well, which has been pivotal, I guess, to the whole success of the project, that we've managed to get them on board and work with them successfully and get the required results from them that benefit both parties, really.
It's been very successful. I think that's been chiefly due to the way partners were brought in together inclusively, and there's been a great team spirit. So there's been a lot of flexibility and responsiveness within the team.
The investment that you see is, well, like the example that you can see on the other side of the road, where we've done a lot of virtual shops to try and tidy up the area and get it ready for new business.
because I think there's nothing more depressing than just seeing a lot of empty, boarded up shops. And I felt, and I know the rest of the team felt, that it wasn't the right way to try and attract investors to come in and actually spend money in Redcar. It wasn't a good experience for shoppers. So we've been doing some work to actually do some virtual shops. But what we've got here is a real shop.
So what we were hoping is that on the back of this programme that we get longevity and sustainability, and these shops that they're moving into will be or not become as vacant as quick as what they currently are at this moment in time.
It undoubtedly works. It's you talk to the retailers, they will tell you that it works.
What they've learnt in the 6 months has been paramount and is key to their ongoing success now, and they will take everything they've learnt with them, and they will still be learning when they move into new premises, but this has given them an excellent foundation.
They're a lot more confident within their own product range. They're a lot more confident within the skills, their selling skills, and if all the areas that we've tried to develop them through the process, then they've benefited from.
What I've been really heartened about talking to them with their final interviews with me is how clear they are about their market, about their customers and their products. It's so clear how much they've learned about where they're going to go next.
I think one thing we've learned as a company, and actually is, it's very, you cannot put people into boxes. You've got to treat them as individuals. For example, we virtually have a business development model which we use in retail. We've now adapted that to 3 different models depending on where the people are starting from, their skills and their expectations.
I think key to the success of the whole project going forward and looking to replicate it, there are some lessons that we've learnt already, really around how we identify, in particular, the individuals that might benefit from this, because retail isn't for everybody. It isn't something, as I say, it's not easy. It's not the easy option that perhaps people sometimes think it is. And so I think that front end of helping to just decide, well, who really should benefit from this project? How do we identify who they are? How can we pick people with the necessary drive and ambition and all the things that go with running a business? How do we select them, and how do we come to some selection criteria? And, more importantly, how do we bring some longevity to this?
We were really lucky that we got such a prime location, although some of the retailers felt that it wasn't prime enough. My argument was, if we'd have put them in an unbelievably prime location, we wouldn't have done them any favours, because they could never afford to be in such a location afterwards. So we wanted them to understand how to market and drive their own footfall.
I think these projects are vitally important in the current climate, given where we find ourselves, not just in the UK but around the world. But if you look particularly towards the UK and the decline in high streets and so on, and there is no quick way to turn this around, but what we've got to do is try and give people the opportunity to see if it is something for them, but not only if it's something for them, but something that they might be able to create a sustainable business out of, grow, develop, and then hopefully look to employ people and help to turn or arrest the decline that we've seen on the high streets, and start to refill some of the individual units and to get the individual retailers back in the show, basically, because at the moment all you have is your larger retailers.
What this is about is a area, Tees Valley, growing its own indigenous independent retailers. That's what this is about, not being the high streets reliant on the national retailers. They're very necessary, but we have to grow more of our own. And the project's objective was to start that new generation of independent retailers.
It's incredibly important that there is some help there and that there is somebody just intervening from a public perspective.
It is one sector that we believe that we will have a very, very solid foundation to build the success of the future of independent retailers.
It cannot be done just by the public sector. It has to be done in collaboration, partnership with the private sector. So a very important part of this has been the developing relationship with private sector landlords who have been in despair for empty units on the high streets. And this project has come in and worked with them, filling those units so it doesn't look so bad, and then working with them also because these businesses are looking for move-on space. So that's been a very important aspect of working with the project.
Even if none of these businesses went on and had a retail business as a result of this, the project would still have worked because it would have allowed them in a safe, cost-effective environment to have realised that.
We've actually helped the towns that we've traded in to actually get a bit more heart, a bit more life in them. And it's just a small piece. I'm not claiming a great change in the world, but we've actually been in a position where people come into the shops and they love coming in, regular customers, and the communities that shop in these in Middlesbrough, Stockton and Redcar, it's actually given them something back to say, here's something positive, here's how we're moving forward as a community and putting the pride back into these towns.
It certainly needs some help. People setting up a retail business do need some help, and I think it's very easy for policymakers just to sit back and think, well, retail will look after itself. But the reality is, for independent retailers, they need some help to get that business started.
And in terms of how we move this project forward, I think it's incumbent upon all of us working in this type of field across the country really, but particularly in relation to this DVD, it's about the Tees Valley. If we want to encourage the next generation of business owners to come forward and the next generation of traders, then what we have to do is more of this, and we have to make sure that we put together the right package of support that can help those people who are sitting at home with a burning passion or a burning idea, and they really want to see whether they can make a go of that idea as a business. And what we need to do is do more of this type of activity and make sure that we are giving people enough opportunities to take those first steps in business towards success.